I mean, it was moving to see how invested the community was in this space, and it kind of reaffirmed that our core audience is who we needed to deliver to. There's a lot of edge cases of people who are often problematic, but if we take care of the people that take care of us, we end up setting a culture that's best for all customers.
Start. Let me double check one thing before I get too crazy here. How much? Okay, I got plenty of hard drive space. I've been doing a lot of videos lately. Okay, so we are streaming. Let me check and make sure the sound's coming through okay.
I brought the good microphone.
Okay, yeah, you sound good. You're actually a lot louder than I am. So let me put myself up here. All right, Tom, looks like you're in chat. Are we sounding okay? All right, while he does this thing. So I'll just do a couple seconds of silence and then I'll get into it.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 75 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. I, of course, am your host, Chris, joined as always by Pumpkin, who's over there. Baby girl is not here today. She's with her mommy, so she's not here. And, of course, every week we have a special guest. This week's special guest is very interesting because normally I think just by the nature of who I am, most of our guests are video game related, but our special guest this week is Aaron Brown, owner of the Tabletop Cafe, who's in the board game space. Aaron, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. We're doing a lot of stuff here to try to, make it work. But it's been it'll be 9 years at our location next month in September. So we're just happy to be here.
Wow, that's wild. 9 years. Like it's time's flying. It just occurred in like 2 weeks, I will have crossed the 10-year threshold of being a professor at Columbus State.
That's wild.
It is, which is just something I picked up because they were like the other professor left and they're like, "Hey, can you help with this class for this semester?" I was like, "Sure." And then 10 years
Yep.
goes by and here we are.
I did that in 1999. I was in college, and one of our professors quit mid-year. I was a senior, and I had a pretty light class load since I was ahead of, and they were like, "Hey, Aaron, could you teach intro to visual art computing? Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Quark back in the day." And so yeah, for one semester, I taught at the University of Dayton just because a professor got out of there.
Nice. Sweet man. So we've known each other for quite a while. You've helped GDEX. You're going to be at GDEX this year, doing some cool
Yep.
experiences. But we sort of, I guess, inhabit separate spaces of the nerd world. More tabletop, and I know a lot of your sort of initial, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your initial sort of thesis was just wanting to create a space, like a positive space where people could come and play games, and you've got your library behind you. I think that's a intimidating, like I'm a board gamer as well. I have a board game design company. I've made a couple of games. But that's
Yeah.
one of the intimidating parts of, I think, board games as opposed to video games. It's just where do I even start? Like what do I even pick out as a
Right.
game? And so you've created this space here, which is right around the corner from me. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how you got started and what your goals were for the company.
Yeah, I mean, when I lived in New York City, um, as a web developer, a lot of the people obviously came from nerdy backgrounds in that world. And we were talking at lunch or whatever, drinks after work, and discussing how much we missed playing Dungeons and Dragons. And so we started using our company's conference room on the weekends, big, huge conference room table, to play D&D. word got out to other people in the company and then friends of friends, and it got to be too big, so we couldn't host it there anymore. So we like started our own little organization called Nerd NYC. We started renting out space around New York, coffee shop basements, black box theaters, martial arts studios to host little like drop-in events all around the city since we couldn't afford our own space. But we got a pretty big audience and a pretty big following of people that just like wanted to get together and play. I think us being in the electronic world, we were on their computers all day, and I think being around a table was meaningful and it resonated. So we just got bigger and started having like we'd all go see Lord of the Rings together. We'd all go do paintball together. So it really was a community, and we worked hard to put together a business plan to open up a physical space in New York, but New York City is so expensive
True.
that we did all the numbers. And as much as I love the model, it's kind of hard to pull off because the fact that people do stay there for a while and it's not a high turnover model.
Mm-hmm.
But when I moved to Columbus, we had two kids, my wife and I, and decided to get out of New York because of the cost of living. And but here, I started doing pop-up events just like I did in New York. We used different rehearsal spaces and food hall places to like host little pop-up events around the city. And eventually we decided to go in on a space, and it's been just fantastic. Like, as I said, we've been here for 9 years, so I've seen families who brought their kids here when they were like 7, 8, and now those kids drive themselves to the store with their friends now. And so seeing our community build over the last 9 years has been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I share your, even in Columbus, like we tried to create a incubator for video games for game developers to come and work out of it and whatnot. And it was tough. I mean, we did it until COVID like slapped us in the
Yeah,
face, but we were always on the line as far as like margins. Like we were trying to charge the least amount of money we could so that people could have an office space, but also then we had to pay for the rent and the internet costs and electric and all that jazz. So
yeah,
it's a tough thing, and particularly we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but when COVID hit and whatnot, it's just that ramp up of getting people comfortable with coming back out and being around each other. And
yeah,
we're more or less out of that now, I think. Now we've got other economic issues, but we'll talk about those. But I think it's
yeah,
exciting to just, it sort of illustrates to me, and maybe this is just my like sort of hippie-ish nature here, but it sort of illustrates to me how much of the fabric of our society is built on just the little people making these community spaces. And sort of this I'll go on my little rant here, but it's like bullshit story we've been told about how all these like big businesses are the creating the jobs and being the fabric of our, and it's like not, it's these small businesses that create these communities and people keep coming to and feel comfortable with. And the fact that you're able to do that for 9 years, I think is a testament to the environment that you have created.
thanks.
So,
Yeah.
oh no, go ahead.
Oh, no, no.
Uh,
I'm waiting
so,
for the follow-up question.
okay. So, I guess one of the things I'm kind of curious, we can talk about sort of COVID and the changes because GDEX went through a lot of that, but um, did you feel like you really had to kind of do a ramp up? So like GDEX, I always say it. So we did a 2020 virtual show, and then we came back 2021, 2, and 3 we did with Origins.
Yep.
And then 24, what year are we in? 25, yeah, 24 and 25, we're back to our sort of own. This year we're teaming up with Korgs, but we're sort of, we're headlining that. But it really
Yeah.
did feel, even when working with Origins, which is a much larger board gaming show than us, it really felt like we were starting over in a lot of ways. Like not exactly because we had, our mail lists and things, but it really felt like we were just like pulling ourselves out of the muck. And I don't know if you had that experience or not?
Yeah, I think you know, we're obviously a very social business, it's about sitting around tables. And so COVID, I like that lockdown was like serious for us. And even when it was legal, we came back at like 25% capacity and then 50% capacity, we kept adding tables. Um and it was, as you said, we had to like reinvent ourselves. So as soon as we were able to reopen but not have sit down people, we started what's now been pretty successful, our tabletop membership. So now you can be a member. It's like 19 a month, and you can borrow games. At the time, you could check out 2 games at a time. We've now scaled that back to 1, so we have more games here. But people could check out games from our library. And so we were doing like packages. It would be like a game night package. It would be like 2 to 4. It was like scale: 2 sandwiches, 2 drinks, 1 board game for a fee, or 4 drinks, 4 sandwiches, 2 board games. So in that way, people could like take the tabletop experience and go home, because a lot of these games are 60, $80, and people like to
Hmm.
try them before they buy them. Some people don't. Some people just have board game collections of stuff they've never played, where they just keep buying stuff.
Sure.
um,
I know all about
I'm
that.
sure you don't know anyone like that.
Hmm.
um, but it's really funny because, like, just an aside, we get a lot of our regulars donate games to us all the time because they don't want to deal with reselling it, but they need to make room for more games.
Yeah.
And so they'll just drop off games for us and be like, "Hey, just throw it in the library." And then, because then they also know that they'll be able to come back and play it since they're regulars here. But moving to that membership model also really solidified who our core audience was, because there was people immediately at shutdown came in that day. We had a couple couples like rush their cars over when they knew that we were going to be shut down the next day, because they announced, starting tomorrow we're going to be closing. So we had like 4 hours that we knew that was all that we had left. We had several people come over and buy like $100, $200 gift cards
Oh
because they
wow.
just wanted to give us money.
Yeah.
They're like, we want to put money in your pocket right now because we know we're not going to be able to be here for who knows how long. And I mean, it was moving to see how invested the community was in this space. And it kind of reaffirmed that our core audience is who we need to deliver to. There's a lot of edge cases of people who are often problematic, but if we take care of the people that take care of us, we end up setting a culture that's best for all customers.
Yeah.
And something that I've harped on from day one here is that if we set the culture what we want, our audience will self-select whether or not they're going to come here or not. If we don't, if we push a very positive gaming experience, a very low threshold gaming experience, people are going to get that as soon as they walk in and are greeted by our staff. I grew up in the gaming community in which it felt like game stores and game store regulars had to put up a bunch of barriers, and you had to prove yourself in order to be accepted there. And we try to do the exact opposite. We're all about ramps and staircases and scaffolding, whatever you want to call it. Like, we want to build up people's game experience.
Yeah.
And so you walk in the door, and as you said, it is intimidating to come across all these games. And because a lot of people, their first time in, if they're not regular gamers, they go, "I don't know any of these games." I mean, we have some Uno and decks of cards and some
Sure.
traditional American family games, but they'll have a hard time finding those amongst all the other stuff that they've never seen. And so, we can say, "Well, what do you like playing?" And then, here's a game that takes a little bit of that, but adds a little bit more.
Hmm.
And we get tons of couples that come in for first date, second date, anniversaries. And we have a great 2-player section. And so a lot of times people come in and their first time is just them and their a partner. And we get them playing a game and then they're hooked.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had one couple that came in. He came in early and hid the engagement ring in their favorite game so he could propose to her.
That's a risky maneuver.
I know. We like watched it for him. We knew what was going on because he like called us like days before
Mm-hmm.
because they came here for their first date and they played Lost Cities, which is one of my favorite games. They played that on their first date, and they whenever they come back, they always play it. And so he knew that they were going to play it, and so he uh, hid the ring in the box, and then he also it was our copy, but he asked whether or not they could take that copy home since it was the one that they first met over. So we bought a new copy for ourselves, and he got the original. So
Oh, that's awesome. How sweet. Uh, yeah, I share that mentality. So as far as the culture goes, this is something that I say a lot, sort of as the the progenitor and the lead and face of GDEX and a lot of the video game dev community here. I've set the culture of expectations of how I expect people to behave and treat each other. And when you come to GDEX, how I expect you to behave. And I hate to say like that's how it is, but that is kind of how it is. Like I let people of differing opinions and stuff in the door, but if you can't have like a base level of
yeah,
just respect for folks, and there's this thing that I kind of refer to. I call it the alpha nerd problem, and that you see this a lot in like Reddit mods and stuff. And I know there's, without calling any names, there's definitely some folks in both the board and video game worlds that are like this. But it's these people that they've been around kind of forever. They think they're the smartest fucking person in the room, and they just have this sort of like attitude about things. And that's never where I wanted to be. Like with GDEX, I want people to feel that they can come and be welcome and interact in new ways, particularly something like GDEX, because there's a lot of indie devs there. There's a lot of like people who are showcasing, like students who are showcasing their game that have never done any kind of exhibition before, and I want them to feel like they're welcome to be there and that they're getting good feedback and that the guests can enjoy it. And then also along those lines, I mentioned, we're all kind of like a bunch of introverted nerds, and there's a lot of people like on the, you could say on the spectrum or whatever.
sure.
And so sometimes there is a little bit of like coaching that's involved where I might need to pull someone aside and be like, hey, just letting you know, like, this kind of behavior isn't really acceptable. Just keep these things in mind, give them an opportunity to kind of self-correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember what you're saying. Like some of the older, particularly like the kind of some of the original game shops, there was like a snootiness about them for sure.
And like it's when you're in such a small niche, I don't understand making any barriers to entry. I have
Sure.
friends who are in even more niche things like the model train world and just their complaints about the store owners and regulars about grilling new people who come in. And then they wonder why their average age in the model train model community is like 60 plus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just it doesn't make economic sense or community sense to set up barriers to entry.
Absolutely. So as you know, this is like we're going to take a little off ramp here for a second, but oh, hey, Pumps. Um, I'm involved in doing some politics stuff now, and it would surprise, or maybe it wouldn't surprise you, but just so I'm running for federal senate as a Democrat. I'm gonna put you down, sweetheart. It would surprise you or not surprise you how many barriers to entry there are in the political space, which I think is what you're talking about, amplified by like an exponential amount. Because it's like if your goal in politics is to quote unquote win and be able to make political decisions and implement policy, like why are you kicking so many people out or making it so difficult for young or new voices to come into the space? It just seems like a self-defeating,
Yeah.
action to
Yeah,
me.
I don't know whether you got a chance to talk to Jenny Bell, who ran for House
I have not
here
yet.
in
No.
Columbus.
Let me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I remember when she was going through it, and as a party outsider, trying, the whole kiss the ring of the local party and getting them to not tilt the scale against you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all watched what happened, you know, to Bernie, and on it's same. It's even probably worse on the local scale. But like these parties on the national scale, also they like really want insiders that they know and they trust, and it's so short-sighted though.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. I was going to kind of mention that because it's like, yeah, on the one hand, you're like, yeah, politics, you want people that you know that have been in it for a while. Like, I get it. Like, I filed my paperwork in mid-June, so I've only been a politician, quote unquote, for 2 months. And I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of these people that have been in there for decades have seen people like me come in and out and yada yada, right? And there is some element of having to prove yourself. Uh,
sure.
but also you shouldn't make it that difficult. Like I'm a big fan of, and this is what GDEX represents. I always call GDEX, it's a platform to help people be successful, is give people that platform for them to be successful. Give them the opportunity to show themselves. And then if they can't, or if they're young and they still need to learn or whatever, like then they can kind of come
Right.
back later. But you shouldn't cut them off at the knees right away, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
because I think it is short-sighted. Like GDEX is 13 years old now. Our little baby's grown up. And I've been in and around this industry a long time. And I have seen a lot of other events, a lot of other indie studios, a lot of other people just completely fall apart because of arrogance and short-sightedness and things like that, where they don't realize that like this is a long haul, right? There's very, very few, Mark Zuckerbergs or whatever that are going to become billionaires when they're 23 years old, right? Most of us are doing this for a long time and we are building connections that are going to need to last and be meaningful. And so you want to treat people with respect and you want to like, check in. Like I sort of feel bad because I'm so busy these days, but like there's a few people that, I'll only talk to at GDC or at GDEX, or maybe I'll text once a year. And I was like, I feel like I really should reach out to them and talk to them more. But like, you know what? At least once a year, I'm reaching out and saying just, hey, how's it going? I mean, you and I are kind of in that boat where I check in with you every, 6 to 12 months or whatever. But we're not hanging out getting drinks or anything. Maybe we should. But
Maybe we should. Like you're right around the corner. So
yeah, and it's not a case. It's not a case of like not wanting to. It's just we're busy and
right.
whatnot. But that's how you foster those relationships over long periods of time.
Yeah. And I think maybe what was part of Trump's success was the going against that. Because I don't think the Republican Party wanted him. They obviously did not want him initially, but he hit upon something that they ended up not being able to ignore. And so, like, you know, I think we all thought Bernie was in the same boat, but it didn't hit as hard, or it what he was maybe too honest to fight it effectively. I
Hmm.
don't know. But I definitely think that going against that worked for Trump's initial thing, and then the party just gave up. So
Yeah.
maybe, so maybe a little gatekeeping is okay.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, I'm not against some gatekeeping for sure. I also
Sure.
think like it's almost like editing in journalism, where like it's good to have somebody over the journalists that can, the reporters that can kind of
Yeah.
like keep an eye on things, second set of eyes, making sure that you're validating your sources properly, stuff like that. Um, but I like just I don't know, if you're trying to create a community or a movement or whatever you want to call it, you need to give people space to, explore and be themselves and
Right. Right.
come up with new ideas. Um,
Yeah.
but so I'm kind of curious. Not that this needs to be the political power hour here, but obviously the conversation of tariffs has been huge, and I know that there's been a lot of articles on Board Game Geek as well as others since the board game industry is, I mean, pretty much run by Chinese manufacturing. Like, have
Yeah.
you
Right.
seen any of these issues prop up? Is this impacting you or your
I
business
mean,
in any way?
like since we don't sell games, anymore. We got rid of our retail section, so we could put more tables in. We were turning people away, which just didn't make sense. And we don't really need to sell board games. And so we got rid of our retail section, so we don't sell games. So I'm not seeing that from that aspect from a retailer point of view. But like, yeah, all the channels that I'm part of, from Gamma to online, game creator things, it is all this discussion. And I think maybe a little bit of it is also the fact that it's not clear what the end policy is going to be, because it changes. It has changed so much since March as far as what the tariff is going to be,
Sure.
what's going to be included in the tariff. And so it's not like you are just ordering it and you're going to get it in a month. It's a long lead process. So you create a game, get your funding for it, send it off to the manufacturer in China. Now, let's say the tariff is 30%, but by the time it ships, it's 65%. And now how do you fix that?
Yep.
I think so many people are trying to wait it out for whatever for him to move on to something else, hopefully. But yeah, a lot of manufacturers I see are completely holding out from we do almost 100% of our income is from food and drink. And something as simple as Swedish fish, which we've had our entire life for 9 years. I used to be able to buy a 30-pound case of Swedish fish for $109, and that was in February of this year. Yesterday, I went to go restock. It's now $130 for the same case. And so now I have to make the decision, do I go and find a cheaper product or do I charge more for it?
Yeah.
Swedish fish are not made in Sweden, they're made in Canada. And so like that whole bizarre trade dispute is causing like me as a small business person to have to worry about something when I could be worrying about something else.
Sure.
It's just inefficient.
Yeah.
More than anything, it's inefficient.
I think you've hit it on the head there, which is the besides Swedish fish being pretty amazing, it's about the uncertainty. Like you can't properly plan next month, let alone 6 months from now, let alone 3 years from now. Which is funny. I mean, not funny, haha, obviously, but it's funny because if the whole purpose is to reshore manufacturing, no one is going to spend tens, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to build a manufacturing plant if they don't know what the tariffs are going to be next year, right? Like think about this. So you got to get the funding. So you have to source the funding. Then you have to get the approvals to build the manufacturing plant through the city and the state and all that. That's going to take you anywhere between 6 months to a year. Then you got to do the architectural plans. You got to do the build outs. Now you're looking at probably at least another year or two, depending on what you're building out, right? Like this Intel plant that looks like it's not going to happen. I mean, we're on year, 7 of that or whatever. Right. And so now you're talking about anywhere between, let's say, 3 to 8 years to get your manufacturing plant up and running. But then you have to ask yourself, is it even cost effective to own and operate this plant if it depends on tariffs being at a certain level, right? Like if this only works if tariffs are at 30 or 40%, and then some point down the road, the next administration goes back to a free trade, deal, you've just lost your ass. So it's just totally, it's totally mismatched from what the reality of small businesses is like. And then I would say as well, this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't think about, is that, you and I are in the small business world. And when you look at tariffs as a tax, it's an import tax. And that's a tax that the businesses pay immediately upon receipt through customs or wherever it's coming from, right? And so you might buy, I don't know, 3 months worth of Swedish fish, but you pay the tax on that all up front. So now you have to be able to afford that in order to even purchase it. these big companies, yeah, they're going to be paying a lot of money theoretically in the tariffs, but they also have the ability to finance that in advance. Whereas smaller
Right.
folks like you and I can't absorb nothing. We're in the digital space, which has been roughly kind of left alone at this moment. Who knows if that will
For now.
change? But I can't afford a 20-30% increase on, whatever. Like if our software licenses or something just shot through the roof by
Right.
30%, like I can't
Yeah.
afford that. Like Unity, for example, Unity is a software platform. That's a foreign company. I don't even know how you're going to tariff something like digital content, but you know,
They'll figure out a way.
well, yeah, that's the thing is logistics and operations isn't actually the point here, right? There's no plan behind this.
Sure.
So yeah, I think it puts it in a hard space. And then you mentioned something really interesting as sort of a side, but when you talk about, I mean, kind of the bread and butter of the board game space is in crowdfunding. And so if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign and you're like, hey, this thing's going to, I don't know, manufacturing in China is going to cost me 30, $40. Shipping is another $10. We'll put it on, uh, Kickstarter or whatever the board game one is. I'm totally blanking on the name right now. For 80, you add a 30, 40, 50% tariff on a 40% good, you're at $60 plus your shipping is now 10 or $15. You're making maybe $5 on each
Yeah.
unit.
Did you back in the day, did you ever read Steve Jackson's article How to Lose $1 Million on Kickstarter?
No.
When Steve Jackson Games re-released Ogre. Do you remember Ogre, the car
Yeah.
fighting game?
Yeah.
Um, they re-released it, and it makes perfect sense. That game is hugely popular in Eastern Europe, um, and but that was back before everyone did the postage post campaign, because it used to be you paid for everything and postage was included and it just showed up on your door. And then after, because there was like, for some reason, wild postage changes between Ogre kickstarting and it being ready to be sent out. And so Steve Jackson honored all those things, but it cost them $1 million to ship all those games across the world.
Wow.
It was also just a ridiculous giant box of heavy cardboard. I
Sure.
mean, they knew what they were doing in a certain sense, but they did not know what they were doing in a certain sense. But like, yeah, I guess everyone's gonna have to have caveats on their Kickstarter that's gonna say, we reserve the right to pass along any tariff cost to you in the future. I wouldn't put one out without that caveat on it.
Mm-hmm.
As much as Kickstarter and crowdfund, backer kit, um, say you're not paying for the product here, you're paying for this project to get made, people view it as a pre-order.
Yeah.
And so people are going to be asking for refunds on things when it comes back that it's a 40% increase. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in that space, but I definitely feel for everyone that is. I just wonder if we're going to see maybe a movement towards less premium product. So many of these products have like the amazing minis, something like Scythe back here,
Yeah.
has all these super cool minis. Are we going to go back to doing more standees to represent our models, in order to keep the prices a little bit more contained? But so many game manufacturers have gone through the whole, we're going to try to figure out how to make this in the US, and they can't.
Yeah. I mean, there is a
And
go ahead. Sorry.
and the thing is, what's odd about this era of politics, is the fact that I don't have a problem with tariffs, and I believe in a little bit of protection of the American worker through some of this planned stuff. One of the reasons why we got into some of the problems we did was some of the free trade stuff was, it made sense on paper for the nation. So you open this free trade, it makes cheaper products for everyone. The people who own those companies that are overseas and import it, they're going to make more profit. So the US as a whole was more profitable because of the free trade agreements. But it wasn't distributed. It was all at the top
Yeah.
and not at the bottom. Um, there's a great book about the Ohio city that made all the Corningware and whatnot called Glass City. Um, and it is all about, gosh, what city is that? No, I'm blanking. But the US city that was like the manufacturing city for Corningware and all this porcelain and stuff. And it completely details how some of the regulations that were changed about um, venture capital acquiring things, breaking it up, and selling off the portions. And in addition to some of the free trade stuff, they just could not compete and make a product that they could sell in the United States anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it went away. But America as a whole made more money. So it is the deregulation stuff often causes these imbalances that on paper sounds like it makes sense, but doesn't make the country whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's of course exacerbated if you look at like wealth distribution and things like that, where it's like, yeah, the average wage in the United States has been increasing steadily, but if you look at the median and the mode, it actually is
Right.
relatively flat. It's that you're getting a lot of people that are producing a lot, well, I'll say producing, that are receiving a lot more value, and then that changes
Yeah.
the wage. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree on a lot of that. I always mention this whenever we talk about economics. I say this all the time because obviously running for Senate, I talk to a lot of different people. And one of the things that I mention is like, look, man, if you go back and read Wealth of Nations, which is like the handbook for modern day capitalism, that's where you get the terms like the invisible hand of the market from and everything. He clearly states in the first chapter and throughout that book that in order to have a fully functional free market, you need a strong government to provide guide rails on it. Because otherwise, it will just go off the rails as more and more wealth gets captured by fewer and fewer people. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it,
And like, and the fight against estate taxes, even though it's so clearly spelled out in Wealth of Nations, he was very much against this generational wealth in this, snowballing, because it's so much easier to make the second million after you make the first million.
sure.
And if that first million is just handed to you, you know,
Yeah.
and so yeah, Adam Smith was 100% for a very aggressive estate tax, and the number of people in the United States that are against these estate taxes who one don't understand it, and two will never have to deal with the caps that are in place already.
Hmm.
It's just astonishing. These people that are waiting to be millionaires, they just think something's going to change in their life, and that all these rules are going to apply to them. But the amount of money that is exempted from estate taxes is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people,
I agree. I think if you look at it, I'm not a wealthy man. My family's not wealthy. So I don't think we'll be anywhere near the caps on any of these things. But yeah, I think if you view that as um, it's a transfer of capital between people is what it is. And if that happens, it's the reality is, and I know a lot of people will poo poo this, but like you didn't earn that money. Your family might have, or your, father did or grandfather did or whatever, but you did not earn the money. And so this idea of like, well, it's being double taxed. It's like, no, because it is a different transaction between whoever originally earned it, which was originally taxed, and then when it's given to you through inheritance or
right.
whatever, that is a separate transaction and that has not been taxed. Um, but yeah, and I agree. I think a lot of us feel like we're in this space. Man, I had a conversation with somebody, I don't know, this was about a month ago, and we were talking about taxes, and we were probably 2-3 minutes into this conversation when I was like, I don't think you understand what a tax bracket is, right? And they were just so sure about what they were talking about. And the conversation started out with taxation is theft. So at that point, I was just like, okay, well, it's not, it's been proven
Right.
not. And the Supreme Court says it's not, but I hear what you're saying. Let's continue the conversation. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, it took about 2 to 3 minutes to realize, like, yeah, you don't understand what tax brackets are. And if you don't understand what
Mm.
tax brackets are, you don't understand how the tax system works. And if you don't understand those things, the just core issues, um, like I think that I'm a big fan of progressive tax. I think that both corporations and people should have a progressive tax system. So I think that like small businesses should, pay a lower amount of tax up to a break point. And it doesn't need as
Yeah.
many break points as an individual, but like a small business that's
No.
making like less than $250,000 in gross revenue, is probably not even super profitable generally, like
No.
you got your staff and your inventory and all that stuff. And I see that a lot of time in the video game space where, uh, because I work with a lot of small businesses, indie developers that are just getting started,
Yeah.
and they'll be working on their budgets. And I'm just like, guys, you haven't, like, your numbers are, you're not making this game for $50,000, right? Like, just think about it for a second, right? $50,000, you think it's going to take you 2 years to make this game, and you have 4 people working on it. Like, are you guys going to be paying yourselves like $3,000 a year? Like you just,
Right.
you need to think about the real economics of this. Um, and I think that we should be building out our social structures in a way that incentivizes new people, new ideas to get in the market, and hopefully be successful. And when they find that success, then they are taxed at that higher amount because that is sort of a reflection of the resources that have been used for being part of our American society. But that's just my
Yeah.
take. So take that for
Yeah,
whatever
and
it's
like,
worth.
and yeah, people. There's so much people don't understand about taxes. Like when so many people talk about wanting a flat tax, what they really mean is close a bunch of loopholes. And like you can have a fairly simple progressive tax. You could get rid of all exemptions, all loopholes, all tax breaks, and have a progressive system that is as easy as a flat system, but it's far more equitable for me versus, a billionaire. I just people like just conflate stuff because other people have done that for them and they want to agree
Yeah.
because they want simple. And
Yeah.
simple does not have to mean a flat tax, which is extremely regressive.
Yeah. Well, that
But
was
I
ultimately
also,
real fast. That was ultimately where we got to in that conversation with my friend because we were talking about getting rid of the property tax, which is funny because he doesn't own a house, he rents, and we were talking about going to a flat tax. I was like, that's fine, we can do all those things, but the end result is that you're going to be paying more every year in tax, and as long as you're okay with that, we can do that. And I don't think he quite put the pieces together, because he was just like, well, yeah, at least I'll be able to choose how I spend my taxes. I was like, well, actually, it'll be chosen for you because now you'll be paying taxes on food, all these other
yeah,
items that normally would have some sort of different taxing structure. You're just going to be paying a flat tax.
yeah, and when I got my real estate license last year, as an aside from this place, because I'm really interested in some more equitable real estate opportunities.
Okay.
Community investment trusts and things where you bring a lot of people together to own property and to control it. But I really want to see, as you said, like the progressive structure should apply to businesses, but I think it should also apply to property tax. I think the more properties that you own, the more you should be paying. The fact that there's these groups that are gobbling up, like I have no problem with, the mom and pop landlord that maybe have a second house that they rent out.
Sure.
The person that, has buys a duplex, they live in one half and rent out the other. Those aren't the landlords that when people complain about landlords, they're usually talking about.
Yeah.
It's these big equity firms that are just snatching up parcel upon parcel, and some of them have hundreds of them. I spend maybe way too much time on the Franklin County Auditor website downloading stuff and like seeing, in my own neighborhood who's owning stuff. We have someone on our street who bought the house, fixed it up to a insane degree. Not even fix it up. It was fine, but they took it to that luxury level. And now he's filling the entire small front yard with birch trees, and it's an Airbnb now. That's like $2,000 a night. It has this pool, and it becomes like these like luxury parties or whatnot that are there. But the fact that now he's planting all these trees, so in that way the house is no longer part of our community.
Yeah.
You can't walk down the street and see the house anymore. It's going to look like it's just a forest
Mm-hmm.
because he wants to separate the house from the neighborhood it's part of. It is like the most bizarre thing, but such an obvious metaphor for what he's doing. I doubt he realizes it. Um, but like it could be another family in our neighborhood that we know and we use as an asset, because so many people like get jobs through people they know, get assistance through people they know, have extra security for their house by knowing your neighbors. All those
Sure.
things are assets, and they're being taken away by these short-term rentals because
Yep.
of the fact that it's no longer part of the neighborhood. In this guy's case, he's making it very obvious that he's not part of the neighborhood. But, and all these things can be regulated. And in the long term, again, what we talked about almost at the very beginning, it's short sighted to
Yep.
be looking for this short term benefit of this extra money coming into this one person to the long term benefit of the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that I've been saying to folks for a little while now is that one of the results of the sort of culture shift that has been created in particular by Trump. And again, I think Trump he's like a symptom of the larger issue here, but you can't deny
Exactly.
that like symptoms can still kill you, right? Like a lot of people can die from the symptoms
Yep.
of whatever the thing is. Um,
Right, right.
but this large cultural shift has just moved us so drastically towards I need to get mine, like the scarcity mindset. I need to get mine. Because everybody's feeling out of control right now. Nobody feels like they have a solid ground to stand on, which goes back to what you mentioned, 30 minutes ago about the sort of uncertainty around everything. And so there's a lot of people that are making really quick, snap, short term decisions because they're feeling stressed and pressured and they're not sure if they can count on their job anymore, and they don't know if social services are going to be available the way they used to, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, whatever. And so they're making all these short-term decisions, but those decisions are ultimately going to end up crushing a lot of us because, one, they're bad decisions to begin with, and then two, the thing you have to remember is like the people that are able to do, like the Airbnbs are a perfect example, right? Like one person purchasing one or two Airbnbs, like you can only afford them as long as you can keep your occupancy rates up. And there's a lot of data that's coming out now that a lot of people that bought Airbnbs from like 2018 to about 2023, you've got the tariffs are increasing the cost to renovate and maintain them. You've got the occupancy rates on these, which are normally in the like 60 to 70%, have fallen to the 10 to 20% range in some areas. And many of these people bought adjustable rate mortgages whose adjustment is about to change come this November. And so
Yeah.
they're going to see their mortgages, which were at 2, 3, 4%, are going to jump up to 7, 8%, and they're just not going to be able to afford it. Rich
No.
people can leverage a lot of situations to handle that change. You,
Yeah.
as normal Aaron Brown guy, cannot, and that's going to cause a lot of problems in the long run when all of these fall apart. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think that foreign investment companies should be able to buy residential real estate, for example, and the way that they do it. But wrapping this all around, because I think this applies to what's going on in the games industry with all the layoffs in AI, this is what's going on in education. I mean, you can apply it anywhere. Is that the way out of this is to form coalitions of good cultures that are going to be able to help each other out in the long
Yeah.
run. Like that is the only way we are going to get through this, is that people with good intentions and good spirit come together to be able to help each other out, because otherwise this tsunami is gonna take so many of us,
Yeah, I think there's a
unfortunately.
lot of people who are, realizing that they have to step up locally in particular. I don't think we should give up on the federal level. Thankfully, people like you are putting their hat in the ring on the federal level. There's a lot of stuff on the local level that we could be doing, but we've slept on.
Absolutely.
And so I'm a board member of CABA, which is the Clintonville Area Business Association, and we just started this new group that's looking into how we can do some community investment. And whenever we talk to people at CABA meetings, people are very excited about it. They're very interested in the idea of how can we, because like the thing that gives me hope every week with all this news is that there's still more of us than there are of them. And if we, realize that and collectivize some of our efforts, we could, as people in Columbus, put a group together, buy some property that we then have a say in how it is used.
Yeah.
And then we can have some say in how we are treating the people that are renting from it and bringing them along board so that way there's kind of a collective ownership of it. So the whole neighborhood feels like it. If you get a chance, I'll send you this link. Um,
Yeah. Please.
but Mercy Court started this project called the Community Investment Trust, and I can't speak highly enough about it. In East Portland, Oregon, they started this project where they bought a strip mall, and now they're selling the shares back of to the neighborhood. You have to be part of, I think, 3 to 4 different zip codes. And once you take this course that explains how the investment project works, you can do 10, 25, 50, or $100 a month into the trust, and then you get shares back. And then you, as a community member, at a very small level, now are a co-owner of this strip mall. So, it logically, you are more likely to go visit the vendors who are in that strip mall because you get money back from them paying rent. You want them to be successful. You don't want vacancy. The members who are who own the stores in that strip mall now see, oh, I really have to serve my immediate community because they're my landlord.
Mm-hmm.
And those which are, working class people that can afford 1025, that shouldn't be a problem. Um, they now are building real estate equity, which is normally something that's only for middle class, higher up people.
Sure.
And they there's amazing graphs in their white paper about it, about the number of people who sell their shares, use that money that they've earned from the appreciation of the property, and they buy a house. They start a business. They take care of a medical expense that would have crippled them.
Yeah.
And this is the way forward, is that we have to realize that collectivized efforts on the local level are going to be part of the solution.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny about all of this, again, not funny, haha, unless I know there's some Kafka-esque, whatever,
Okay.
is that all of this stuff, like the things you're mentioning, a lot of stuff gets sort of like put into this, communism, Marxism, socialism bubble or whatever bullshit, right? But the reality is like, this is what companies do all the time. Like companies, even though they're private entities, they are collective organizations that utilize and pool resources, train people, educate them, provide benefits, like
Yeah.
all we're doing is being like, hey, we should do this instead of the end goal being shareholder value or whatever. We should be doing this to provide incentives and opportunity for folks that live in this country, which then will help then spur private enterprise as well. Because, and this shouldn't be a, surprise, but when you have a work force that is healthy and educated and understands how to critically think and solve problems, they are more effective at your business. So providing these opportunities and building out these areas, like, it sort of helps everybody. I'm a real big fan of aligned incentives. And I think creating aligned incentives, where even if you're coming at it from different angles, you're still trying to reach the same goal. Because I think all of us, hyperbolically, all of us are trying to build a better America and a better life for ourselves and our family. I think a lot of us have just been confused. There was actually an article while we were talking here that popped up about how the Ohio GOP, like one of their members, said that, like, they've intentionally been trying to obfuscate ballot initiatives to confuse voters. Like, that is a part of their strategy. And for me, that does not seem as like, you are not trying to work to solve actual problems. You're trying to confuse people to get what you want for whatever reason, nefarious, malicious, or otherwise. And I don't want any part of that. Like, I am not interested in any of that bullshit. My goal has been to help to build, in this case, a games industry in Ohio, in the Midwest, and to build a culture around creativity and education and whatnot. So yeah, I'd be very curious about a lot of the things you're talking about, because we're actually internally, we have been talking about, I don't know if we're ready to pull the trigger after COVID. We were kind of like, oof, once bitten, twice shy, but trying to get a physical incubator back up and running again. And so we've been curious about having a space where we could bring people together. So awesome.
Yeah, we can talk more about that. I know we talked about that last time we met, but that space that I was looking at it's in contract already. So
okay. Well, I have a feeling that like, I hate to say this, but I mean the economic indicators are showing that we might be having on the verge of a housing collapse, a potentially commercial real estate collapse as well, which is not great. But sweet, man. Well, we're kind of at the end of our time. Any last things you want to chat about before we wrap up? We went on a wild and woolly ride here.
I'll just bring it back to the fact that, like, the reason why we're called Tabletop and not anything cute or clever about trolls and unicorns or whatnot is the fact that, like, it's all about coming together. It's all about sitting around with people and how important it is as people and as a society to sit around with each other. And we've had a goal from the beginning, no offense, but we have no monitors anywhere in our store because we want people to, like, be offline.
Totally.
And they need that break. So many people's jobs is 100% online, particularly our friends that are still working at home. That's their entire connection.
Yeah.
And I think we need more spaces. You don't have to come to Tabletop. Find a place where you can sit around a table with people that you enjoy their company. Maybe one person who you don't enjoy their company yet, and get to know them. Choose an activity that you guys can bond over. I just think we've lost so many third spaces, and I think we need to bring them back. And I think we need more tabletops for people to be around.
I agree. You don't. Your bar pricing doesn't even use a monitor.
I mean, sure. We have tablets.
I'm just
for
teasing.
Payment, but
I'm just teasing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for anybody who's watching that's in the Central Ohio, Columbus region, check out Tabletop Cafe. It's on High Street, right around the corner from me. It's a great place. So Aaron, thanks so much for being on the show. Is there any way for people to follow you or Tabletop Cafe? Any social media or anything?
Yeah, everywhere on the social medias, we're usually just Tabletop Game Cafe or Tabletop C-Bus. And then, if you're in the Columbus area, we'd love to show you around and get you a beer and a board game.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been episode 75 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. Remember that we do this every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern on our Twitches, and then we also post it to YouTube afterwards. So make sure to check out and share all of those. But it was a great conversation. So on behalf of myself, Pumpkin, Baby, everybody in the chat, and our special guest, Aaron, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.